was my aunt's, and that we bought,
Okay.
you see, when we started logging in 92. My mother was still alive, she died, well, right,
She died in 93.
yeah, 93, so right about then is when we talked to my aunt, and her big concern said, it would be nice to keep this in the family. They had already sold off a couple of 40s to other people. And she didn't really like doing that, but anyway, by us approaching her and saying, well, would you sell us the rest of the property? So she sold it to us with a 90-year life estate for her 2 kids.
I see. Wow.
And they're city slickers. One of the grandsons was hunting for a little while, but now I don't think they've been up there for 15 years.
Was Fane Haynes a relative, a part of your family?
Who?
From Yorkville, Fane Haynes?
I don't I can't hear her.
I'm sorry, Fane and Evelyn Haynes from Yorkville? Were they part of your family?
No,
Evelyn?
No.
Yeah, and Fane Haynes
Yes.
in Yorkville.
You know how they spell it?
Oh, I don't remember.
well, there's other Hayneses in the area that spell it the same that aren't direct
So you don't
relatives.
know them, that's all, those are the ones that I ever knew, so I just wondered if they.
Yeah.
Are they still part of the ranch?
One died of a heart attack, when?
7 years.
What,
7 years ago now?
Yeah.
what about the corporation?
The corporation stays forever.
Oh, so it's still a
Yeah,
corporation?
that's the advantage of corporations, they're forever.
Okay.
It's gonna be interesting as each of the people die off and give shares, there's gonna be more and more owners. But my older brother just now has appointed his oldest daughter the power of attorney, and she's gonna start giving, my oldest brother still has a third of his property. Back in 2010, when there was a one-time thing that if you did it, you didn't have to pay gift tax. So I gave about 2/3 of my 1/3 to my kids because I didn't know what they were gonna do. Well, when Trump got in, he changed the law even better, or the legislature changed the law. So now there's not anywhere near as much gift tax. So my niece, who's taking care of my brother's estate, won't have to deal with that issue like my parents did. Which is why, if you've got big pieces of property, making a corporation out of it makes sense. If you've got many kids to break it up. So many times, my great uncle had a big house in Cloverdale. And during the war, rents were fixed. It was like a 10-room house. And you still, by 1945, when the war ended, it was still renting for $20 a month. Well, my folks took that 10-room house and made it into a fourplex. My dad didn't want to have anything to do with managing a house. So he gave the business of managing rental to my mother. She made so much money with the rent, she ended up buying four more properties. And so one reason their estate tax was so much because they owned so much Cloverdale property.
So the houses that the hunters built, how did that work?
Well,
Did they become
believe it or
yours?
not,
Don't ask too many hard questions.
no, it's a good question. For a long time, my dad, in 1975 or so, the county came and assessed all our property. There was some sort of a new law that happened in 75. So they all got on the tax roll. My dad was charging them $10 more than their tax was.
Okay.
And I told him, you've got more than $250 in your first, oh, I didn't tell you that. The 15 cabins cost him $250 in 1932 prices, and he was still only charging $10. He wasn't even,
Wow.
yeah, so he was only, and this is in 92 or something, when I took over taking the ranch book. But he said, and he was pissed at me. He said, slap it down, and he said, here, you do it. But don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg.
Yeah.
The hunting clubs have paid the taxes all those years. So
Good point.
we slowly increased, because of inflation, we've had to slowly increase things, because our expenses have gone up and the taxes have gone up.
And so if one of the members that built the cabin decided to no longer be a member, then you could just rent that cabin to someone else?
We would, yeah,
Yes.
we would usually buy them out at a reasonable.
I see.
Market value.
Usually,
Mind you, most of these places are pretty breezy.
Pretty rough.
These are funky cabins.
Well, they're hunting cabins.
well, the cabin that we lived in when my great uncle died, well, when we lived, but we were up there in deer season. But in the winter, when my mother tried to, they were batting board. There was no paper between the walls, so you had to sit next to the fire to keep warm, because the stove wouldn't heat the whole cabin. And the bedrooms were always cold.
Yeah.
The cabin we had was a big, long room that was a cooking area, eating area, and then a living area, and then 2 bedrooms. So, yeah. And then we moved into one of the other, one of the things that happens in redwood country is big trees fall. And a big tree took out our original cabin, and it went through all the beds, and we weren't there. But when we came up that weekend and then the cabin's got a big tree for it, we went over and moved into one of the other 10 by 16 with the porch, and the porch was enclosed in. We moved into that. And then when my folks retired, no, actually before they retired, they added a big addition onto it. When they did retire, my brother and them were living there. Then that was their house until they built their ranch house that they ended up living in. And that cabin now is still being used by a hunter. But we base our rent basically on the square footage of the cabins.
I see. And so have you lived on the ranch?
Yes, I built my own house. And
Okay,
it
so
was
you've been there a long
It was a
time.
Winchester house. It had like at least 4 levels. I gave it to my youngest son, and he didn't want to have to deal with the roof line. So he chopped off most of the 3rd story, yeah, and topped off the roof of it and put on a simple roof to maintain. Because it's still a long ways up. He still hasn't painted one side, because you have to build scaffolding to get up. Because it's on a hillside, so on the tall side, it's like 50 feet above the ground. And it still has a spiral staircase that goes up to the library, and it has a tower. That's the only part that looked like a tower anymore.
An interesting bit about that original fight, you guys are all familiar with Bootling. You may not be familiar that the word in Bootling for a horrible fight is a Haynes Christmas.
Yeah.
And I remember my grandparents telling visitors the story, and the part where my great-grandfather was buried on this side, and Isaac was buried at the end of Mountain View and the Manchester side. And I guess my dad wasn't familiar with that, and I had always remembered that story, and I've been looking for Isaac Crispin's grave for years. And I'd stop at that one Point Arena cemetery that has the stornette, as it's kind of big,
Oddfellows.
And then, but then there's the little one right at the bottom of the hill when you get to the Highway 1 intersection.
It's called the Christian Cemetery, I believe.
Well, there's not a sign.
Yeah, no, there isn't, no.
It makes sense
Yeah.
because I stopped there multiple times looking for this and never, I look in every one and I thought, oh, maybe the older one's back. And well, it turns out it was one of the first graves, but the coast has degraded the stone and there was a bunch of bushes also growing in front. So it was really hard to find Isaac Crispin's grave, but it's there, but it's almost unrecognizable.
But I looked it up on the internet and found the original picture of it before it was.
And it looked good, yeah.
And he was
You
very good
can't
friend
read
of
it, you
Nathan.
almost can't read it now, with all the
Side by side.
Yeah.
things worn off.
I've seen it, but I haven't been over there for years. It's been a long time, they don't upkeep that much.
Oh, it's been there 100 years. 100 years.
100 years, wow. Well, we saw it, didn't we? Well, yeah, no, we went and maintained it one time here a while back. I think it was in the
We
early
have,
2000s.
we have two families that have been in our hunting club 5 generations.
Wow.
Oh, my.
Wow.
What's the biggest buck they pulled off Haynes Ranch?
Oh, 130 pounds would have been a really big one.
How many?
Oh,
5.
5, yeah.
Wasn't there a Boone and Crockett a couple years ago?
It would have qualified, yeah, but yeah, no more than like 5 points. 5, that's super
That's
rare.
pretty big here.
Yeah.
I have several shed ones that are 5 points. But you don't see those during hunt season.
No, you don't.
They don't get that way,
A
get
little
stupid.
A little bit more of the story, a little bit about hunting club. Back in those days, we hunted in front of dogs. The deer were almost always running. And one day when I was 12 years old, there were 7 people on this hunt. We shot 42 shots.
Wow.
I wounded one and we didn't find it because it was real hot days. Someone who was down on Hollow Tree Road, they mentioned it one day, gee, what was happening up there? But people didn't have scopes on their rifle. They had open sights, maybe a peep sight. And when they started getting the scoped rifles, now we have a gun club meeting every year. And we report who shot what. Well, now they're shooting them with 1 shot or 2 shots at the most, and very few misses. Compared to the state, one of our clubs regularly gets a 30% hunt, a 50%, 50% hunter success. The club that was built in the log over timber area, they've never ever done as good, partly because there's less of them that are good hunters. It takes a lot more skill to hunt in timber than it does in more open brushy areas. But it's interesting when people say, well, one of the things, and this is clear back in the 40s, when we had some members who were wealthy and wanted to have fewer members and charge more, and my dad refused. He said, no, I founded this for a working man's place to hunt. Talking to a guy over in Potter Valley, I think they charge $12,000 a year, but they cater to them. They cook for them and guide them, they do everything.
Can you introduce the people in the pictures?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Can I help you?
This. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
This is us, when see Roger's about 4. And that's my mother and father.
And so this is you?
That's me. That would be 40.
And this is your brother that's still alive?
This is my brother that's still alive. And my
Who's this?
dad, probably,
So he does look like he would be a good actor. Very handsome.
that was probably in his 20s when he was down in LA. This is a picture of me standing by one of our ships. Isn't there anymore, but I made the leather shirt out of buckskin, and now I gave the leather shirt to my stepson, Scott Aiken. He likes to do the black powder shoot. He'll wear that. And that's my dad in his 80s. You can see how it resembles.
See a resemblance?
And this is Uncle Barney in Canada with a coonskin coat. Well, in Canada where it's so darn cold, I guess that was pretty standard wear.
What kind of coat?
Coonskin. Coonskin coat?
Raccoon, yeah.
Raccoon.
I mean,
Say, didn't they
all
kill
I know
all
is
the
what they
otters
told me.
What was his last name? Barney?
Larmor.
Larmor, okay.
And then his homestead was right on our main entrance. The creek that goes down to the Garcia River is Larmor Creek. The ridge that goes down through our ranch is Campbell Ridge. The other ridge that goes through our ranch is Haynes Ridge. And there's another one called Hogue Ranch Ridge. That's what made it so hard to divide it. It's these three ridges, and you can't cut it up and have roads getting into the different parcels.
Is there one called Signal Ridge? Signal
No,
Ridge?
Signal Ridge is Crispin side,
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Where, you mentioned the Hollow Tree Road. Where does that come from?
Fish Rock?
Fish
Okay.
rock.
It comes from Fish Rock.
Fish Rock Road, when you go past the Maillard Ranch, you go through the, just not far past the park. You go past the Maillard Ranch,
Yeah.
go through the Redwoods, which is
Yeah.
some type of a conservatory that they right, somewhere just past that, you see this road that goes off to the right with a big gate, and that's the Hollow Tree Road.
Okay.
But they had a mill. The mill site is way down the Garcia River. It's at least 10 acres. It's the most beautiful place right in the middle of all this timberland with just these concrete slabs where they tore all the buildings down.
That's in that conservancy now,
They-
huh?
When they had the power going up to the radar station, the mill got its power from that electrical. That's pill time.